Everyone knows Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. It is considered the world's largest spino, with the longest skull among carnivorous dinosaurs and a length of approximately 45 feet. However, there's something you don't know. A paper published in February 2026 revealed a new rival that dethroned Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, Spinosaurus mirabilis. According to this study, Spinosaurus mirabilis' legs were 15% larger than those of Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. This is mind-blowing. Every year, new excavations unearth a new gigantic Spinosaurus specimen, and this specimen takes the top spot on the throne. Although most of these are disputed species in terms of validity, Spinosaurus clearly loves to surprise us. I know you want to hear new things by now, so I am proud to tell you right away that this paper did not only reveal the impressive leg length of Spinosaurus mirabilis, this paper also revealed that the skull shape of Spinosaurus mirabilis is incredibly different from that of Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, and that there are actually 3 distinct stages in Spinosaurid evolution. One of the most interesting aspects of Spinosaurus biology is the lifestyle of this animal, and for a long time, we thought we understood how this worked. But we were wrong, because this research overturns our previous understanding of Spinosaurus' lifestyle. It also yields interesting and unexpected results for the traditionally depicted feeding regime. Until the beginning of this year, only a single species of Spino was known, Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, the Egyptian Spino. As the name suggests, it was found in Egypt in the early 1900s by a paleontologist named Stromer. Although the material found revealed that Spino had enormous spines on its back, frankly, Spino still remains somewhat mysterious. While research on the holotype continued, during World War II, when the city where the Berlin Museum was located suffered heavy bombings, the holotype was unfortunately lost over time. After a long time, in 1980, Baryonyx, a member of the Spinosauridae family, was discovered. Due to the anatomical overlaps between Baryonyx and Spino, a long-legged Spinosaurus reconstruction emerged. This was actually the famous Spino that many of us knew from our childhood in Jurassic Park. You know, the death machine Spino that was an alternative to T-Rex. At that time, the emergence of a dinosaur rivaling T-Rex made a huge splash. But the mystery of exactly what Spinosaurus looked like still remained. This is where 2014 becomes truly important, because all assumptions about Spinosaurus started to change that year. First, under the leadership of paleontologists Nazar Ibrahim and Paul Sereno, new remains belonging to Spinosaurus were found in Morocco. Later, this specimen was named Spinosaurus moroccanus, the Moroccan Spino. Thus, for the first time in over 100 years, we had a better idea of what Spino actually looked like. And apparently, Spino was even stranger than we thought, because it not only had those long, notched jaws as we had assumed, but it also truly showed how the jaws articulated. But the interesting part is that, according to the data, Spinosaurus was not that giant death machine depicted in the early 2000s. The animal's hind legs were not longer than its front legs, as previously thought. Its front legs were longer, and this pointed to a reconstruction that walked on its knuckles. Moreover, it was semi-aquatic and hunted by diving. All these unusual assumptions led to doubt and anger, further fueling years of debate. Later in 2020, they found Spinosaurus's tail. This was an extremely significant development. Because the tail of Spinosaurus was paddle-shaped, unlike any other dinosaur, and the team concluded in their research that the tail indicated a clear swimming ability. Still, some paleontologists did not accept this view. One of these paleontologists was Paul Sereno. In 2022, Paul Sereno dropped a bombshell of a study on the table, titling it, without any subtlety, "Spinosaurus is not an aquatic dinosaur." In this study, the team examined CT scans of the neotype specimen and created a 3D digital model of the animal. And a quite realistic picture emerged. The famous 2014 reconstruction was actually overblown. Correctly scaled bones and center of mass calculations revealed that this creature actually had the body balance of an ordinary theropod. However, the Spinosaurus proposed by Sereno's team was something like a balloon. The total body density of their proposed Spino, in kilograms per liter, was only slightly heavier than a modern flying bird. This means that this animal let alone diving, would barely even sink on the water's surface. Then Evan Johnson Ransom and his team also published a study. Their research showed that Spinosaurus's primary weapon was not developing bite force, but rather fast reflexes. Their 2026 paper took things a step further. According to the paper, the skull of Spinosaurus was less resistant to stress compared to other giant theropods. Yes, but it was the most robust skull within the entire Spinosaurid family. Its weak point was the back of its jaw, which reinforced the idea that instead of wrestling with prey, it used its rosette-shaped conical teeth at the tip of its long snout to snatch its prey like lightning and pull away. This very idea paved the way for the newly published paper. Now let's get to the new developments. At the beginning of this year, Dr. Paul Sereno, along with 20 young students, embarked on a long 3-month expedition to the Farak Formation in Niger. Actually, a tooth and a few jaw fragments belonging to a Spino had been found in this region in 2019. However, since the rest of the remains could not be found, the discovery remained incomplete. Just a few months ago, Paul Sereno and his students unexpectedly managed to find additional remains belonging to this species. And the team named this new species Spinosaurus mirabilis. However, unlike many other dinosaur species, this name does not refer to the country where it was discovered, but carries the Latin word mirabilis, which means astonishing. So why is mirabilis different from other species? First of all, Paul Sereno describes this expedition as the expedition of the century. The reason for this is that during this expedition, a strange crest structure was found that clearly differs from all other predatory dinosaurs. As you can see, Paul Sereno is showing here that strange crest made of solid and dense bone, incredibly long, like a unicorn horn. If there's anything stranger than this strange crest, it is that these strange crests are different in all 3 Spino species. Yes, the shape of the crest varies to a high degree among individuals. Aegyptiacus also has a partial crest very similar to this, but it is much shorter. Mirabilis' crest is about 40 centimeters long, quite long for a Spino crest. Let's make an assumption. If Spinosaurus mirabilis could reach the size of an adult Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, its crest, proportionally enlarged, would be about 50 centimeters long. Moreover, considering that these crests were covered in a keratinous sheath in life, which is highly likely, according to estimates in the paper, this length would increase further, exceeding 60 centimeters, a full half meter. These giant dinosaurs might have really walked around 95 million years ago with half-meter-long blades sticking out of their heads. The Cretaceous world was truly insane. So how big was Spinosaurus mirabilis? As I just said, Spinosaurus mirabilis surprisingly has longer hind legs than Aegyptiacus. The researchers say that Spinosaurus mirabilis was roughly the size of a T-Rex. This corresponds to about 8 meters or 26 feet in length. When we adapt this data to a fully mature mirabilis, we get a length of about 12.3 meters or 40 feet. This means it is only a little shorter than a large adult Aegyptiacus. If you've made it this far in the video, you can leave a bone emoji in the comments as a tribute to Mirabilis' incredibly long crest, or if you'd like to support me directly, you can subscribe to my channel. Furthermore, since the crest was covered with a keratinous sheath, this means that Spinos would have had crests in quite varied colors during their lifetime. So what was the purpose of that? The crests of theropod dinosaurs generally functioned for display or intraspecific recognition. The long, highly vascularized crest of Spinosaurus mirabilis likely served this purpose as well. It may have facilitated individual differences, courtship rituals, or distinguishing members of the same species. However, there's another interesting dimension to this. In previous 2D and 3D computer simulations conducted on Yutyrannus and Dilophosaurus, it was observed that the mechanical stress generated during biting on these species' crests was quite low. This shows that these fancy crests were not just for show, they might also have a physical function, such as distributing bite force. These different crest anatomies in different species suggest that there might have been serious differences in dietary habits among these theropods. If such a possibility exists, each species would need to be re-evaluated within its own context. This is crazy, but it's not over. Interestingly, all 3 crest fossils have a certain amount of asymmetry. This is not due to taphonomic effects related to how the fossils were preserved in the soil. On the contrary, they were asymmetrical even in life. Even mirabilis' crest has deformations similar to those found in cassowaries, such as drooping or wrinkling on one side. And this could indicate sexual dimorphism, but we need more data to detail this. You might be thinking, all the crests are disarticulated from their joints. How do they know that crest came from a spinosaur in this complex bone pile? There is a very simple explanation for this. The holotype's crest still contains some skull material attached to it. Specifically, the upper jawbone, the maxilla, and the nasal bones were found fused with the crest. Moreover, the same maxilla appeared in another fossil specimen, and researchers determined that it matched perfectly with the bones attaching to the crest. So pieces from two different skulls overlapped. Generally, there is not much overlap in the skulls, but there is a perfect match in these critical regions connecting to the crest. So it is quite certain that the found crest belongs to a Spinosaurus. Additionally, this crest gives us a few more important clues about this dinosaur. One of these is that Spino was actually a land animal. Not an ocean monster that dives, as some have suggested, but generally lives on ocean shores and riverbanks. Because having a tail like this is really impractical for a heron-like lifestyle. When this tail structure was first described in 2020, scientists interpreted it as an organ that provided propulsive force in the water, like the tail of a giant salamander. However, since then, many researchers have viewed this with skepticism. According to them, this tail, like the sail on its back, was most likely a visual display tool. Now, the discovery of this cutlass-sized crest on the skull makes it even more evident how intensely these dinosaurs used visual communication. Therefore, it now seems much more likely that the tail's actual function was display rather than aquatic movement. If you noticed, I am talking about large structures along the entire midline of Spinosaurus, the crest, the back, and the tail. So Spino was, in fact, a flashy animal from head to toe, and it clearly used this for display purposes. Furthermore, the fact that Spino fossils appear in inland river system solidifies the idea that these animals were terrestrial. The region where it was found was at least 500 kilometers away from the nearest ocean. This indicates that Spinosaurus mirabilis specialized in roaming rivers and hunting in shallow water rather than diving in large bodies of water. Here's the thing. Large vertebrates transitioning from land to water almost always take this evolutionary step on sea or ocean coasts. They transition to freshwater only after a long process. However, Spinosaurus mirabilis lived directly inland. This makes it much more logical to see it as an animal that roamed riverbanks, waded in shallow waters, and never lost contact with the ground, rather than an underwater ambush feeder in deep waters. Functional morphology analysis revealed that Spinosaurus mirabilis preferred shallow waters about 1.5 meters deep, roamed rivers, and caught fish with sudden, lightning-fast lunges. Its jaws, already filled with interlocking conical teeth, were perfect weapons for this lifestyle. Speaking of jaws, examining the jaws also revealed some of this animal's excellent prey-catching abilities. All Spino species share a tooth structure that is straight, curved, and unserrated, unlike a T-Rex tooth. For instance, Spinosaurus aegyptiacus is one of the rare theropods whose lower jaw does not close completely. The lower teeth protrude upwards and fit into a special notch in the jaw, so it grips and compresses its prey and swallows it. But mirabilis' way of eating its prey is much more brutal. Thanks to a wider gap along the upper jawbone, the lower teeth interlock with the upper ones. So mirabilis behaves just like a gharial while catching prey, chewing, and swallowing it. This makes it almost impossible for fast-swimming, slippery-scaled fish to writhe free. That's exactly why it's called the hell heron. Mirabilis also has incredible claws on its hands. It could probably catch anything it wanted with these hands. But first and foremost, these hands were adapted for eating fish. And these fish were by no means small. Additionally, in this paper, scientists gained a fairly clear idea of what this extraordinary creature's skull looked like based on some bone fragments. The most intact fossil, designated as the species holotype, contains a large portion of the snout, a few individual teeth, 5 teeth in their sockets, and a section of the crest. Frankly, the first noticeable difference is that mirabilis has a much shallower and lower snout. The skull is also narrower and longer compared to Aegyptiacus. So instead of the solid, thick snout structure in Aegyptiacus, a much thinner and longer snout emerges. As I mentioned earlier, 3 distinct stages were identified in Spinosaurid evolution. And the unexpected discovery of Spinosaurus mirabilis was influential in defining these stages. Thanks to this current perspective, nourished by the new fossil and other recent finds, unexpected results were obtained. 3 different stages were determined using a periodization method. First, the first 35 million years of their existence account for about half of the total fossil record. And during this first 35 million years, Spinosaurs are known only from isolated teeth from the Jurassic and early Cretaceous. And it was determined that these teeth also carry the characteristics of the fishing identity that Spinosaurs would later evolve. So it would not be wrong to make the following inference. Spinosaurs' fish-eating habits must have evolved in this first stage. Both the anatomical changes related to aquatic life and the deep split between Baryonychinae and Spinosaurinae are predicted to have occurred during this period. In stage 2, which covers about 20 million years of the early Cretaceous, Spinosaurids diversified greatly. The periphery of the Tethys became the area where these predatory giants were largest and most widespread, while in the south, baryonychines like Suchomimus appeared in Africa, Spinosaurians like Irritator in Brazil, a baryonychinine wave in northern Europe, and Spinosaurians represented by Ichthyovenator from Laos in Asia. The final stage of Spinosaurid evolution lasted about 15 million years and witnessed the rise of an elite subgroup called Spinosaurini. Now, surviving only on the southern shores of the Tethys, these animals are represented by 2 African Spinosaurus species, and the Brazilian Oxalia and an unnamed Spinosaurine, while the continents were separated by the opening of the equatorial Atlantic Gateway. In this stage, the snout became further shaped. The downward curvature and the S-curve of the neck became more pronounced, and the gigantic spines in the back and tail also emerged during this period as a crowning glory. Actually, with all this research, we also realize that the layer from which we unearthed these new Spinosaurus remains is not the same as the location where the famous Aegyptiacus was found. But we are still talking about an Egyptian animal. So how can this be? This is where geography and time come into play. Geological processes on the African continent have mixed the sediments in such a way that right next to a bone from the late Cretaceous, you can even find a piece from the age of mammals. Dates are intertwined, superimposed. This means that when you dig out that fossil, it becomes really difficult to pinpoint exactly which animal lived in which time period. In theory, you can take the fossil and the surrounding sediments and date them in the lab. But the interesting part is that this detailed work has not yet been done on this Egyptian material. Therefore, we do not have a clear age label. But there is a possibility. Let's say the fossils from these 2 different regions coincide exactly in time, just in different locations. Then the probability that this animal lived in both the west and the east of North Africa increases. After all, the habitats of modern animals today are also quite vast. Actually, proving this alone is not enough. We also need to prove that they are anatomically identical, which means we need to find more than just the Egyptian material. First and foremost, let's digest the fact that we are right in the middle of an age of discovery. And right now, dinosaurs are being named faster than at any time in history. Perhaps your children and their children will witness the true golden age of dinosaur research. The good news is that Spinosaurus mirabilis was found alongside the remains of many other animals. More bird-like predatory dinosaurs, crocodiles, and creatures of all kinds than you have ever seen are waiting for us in the 50 tons of material brought out of Africa during that legendary expedition in quantities you have never seen before. There is such a wealth on the way that we will literally be redefining a lost world. Spinosaurus mirabilis was the first good Spinosaurus material found in a century. But despite this, there is so much misinformation about Spinosaurus. Claims like Spinosaurus was downsized. It's not that interesting anymore, because it's not that giant predator from Jurassic Park 3 are circulating. First of all, that predator in Jurassic Park 3 that you think is giant is not even giant. Yes, if you notice, the Spinosaurus that most resembles the Jurassic Park 3 monster is mirabilis, the smaller species. Ridiculous as it may be, it's the truth. Moreover, paleontologists are not changing Spinosaurus. We are simply getting closer and closer to what it actually was. The reconstructions from the 60S, Jurassic Park 3 in 2001, Planet Dinosaur in the 2010s were not correct, because we have better knowledge today, and this animal may continue to change in the future. Indeed, the depiction of T-Rex has also changed. It was shown fully feathered in scientific illustrations around 2012 to 2014, while we now know that was wrong. This is exactly how science works. This is the nature of science. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments that you made it this far in the video by leaving a dinosaur emoji. You can also support me by subscribing to my channel. See you soon with more science videos.